Welcome everyone, and thanks for watching. Thanks to the new Spectres in Affliction League, and some great League start guides from other creators, Minion builds are seeing a significant resurgence. Some minions obviously get more attention than others, so in this video we'll be building around what may be the least popular minion skill in the game. Along the way, we'll uncover some surprising inaccuracies in minion damage calculations across the board. Your minion's attack damage is not what Path of Building leads you to believe, and the true numbers benefit no build more than my Law of the Wild's Guardian. Despite being about as far from the meta as you can get, and requiring some curious interactions to function, the build was strong enough to take me through the Atlas and the beginnings of the endgame. It won't overthrow the current minion meta, but it's a perfectly viable option and is a concept I've been waiting to try for ages. I'll be showcasing the playstyle and some endgame encounters after explaining the build and those miscalculations, so you can use the video chapters to skip ahead if that's what you're looking for. For now though, let's begin with the mechanics. The core item and namesake of the build is Law of the Wilds, a claw which grants the Summon Spectral Wolf skill. The skill appears in a couple other places, such as Rigwald's Crest, but the claw provides the only level 25 version, and allows us to affect the skill with support gems socketed in the weapon. Much like Arakali's Fang, we can additionally use the Squire for 3 more support gems, giving us an effective 7 link. And between the incredible quantity and rarity bonuses from the League mechanic and the unique rewards from Valdo's maps, the Squire has fallen to a mere 2 divines, giving the build a fairly low cost of entry. There's one major hurdle we need to overcome though. Law of the Wilds only triggers on 20% of weapon critical strikes. With a maximum of 10 summoned wolves, we are going to need to crit a lot in order to keep these going. Under normal circumstances, this would require a big investment into attack speed, accuracy, and critical strike chance, taking away from investment in our minions and requiring us to spend our time attacking rather than dodging or casting our minion buff spells. Thankfully, we can avoid both of these issues with clever use of Static Strike. After an initial hit, Static Strike will grant a buff that fires chaining beams at nearby enemies. With its new gem quality, these beams will fire nearly 4 times per second, and importantly, count as melee hits from our weapon. The real trick though, is that the beams snapshot all properties from the initial hit, including bonuses to exerted attacks from War Cries, or, in our case, Ambush. With its new gem quality, Ambush grants the next attack a flat 35% to its base crit chance, making it trivial to reach 100%, and conveniently places us right in range to make that first strike. Unfortunately, the 5-second cooldown is longer than Static Strike's duration, and it would be a pain to accurately attack the enemy we jump to every time, but these are solvable problems. Since we don't care about the damage of the critical hits, we can use quality of life supports consumed by a Hungry Loop ring. Increased critical strikes takes us to nearly 100% chance, increased duration brings our duration up to 5.5 seconds, Ancestral Call auto-targets 2 nearby enemies whenever we attack, and additional accuracy gives us a big head start on our chance to hit. And we can widen that half-second window even further with the Stampede Boots, which nearly halve the cooldown of both Ambush and Flame Dash. This keeps us incredibly mobile when we need it, and grants an extra Anoint as a bonus. And with that, the core mechanics are in place, but before we can get to the damage scaling, we need to address the elephant in the room. The damage numbers for Spectral Wolves in Path of Building are bad, like embarrassingly bad. We can get an idea by comparing it to base DPS for similar minions at a respectable gem level, each at their minion limit. SRS is the king at the moment, reporting numbers far higher than other reasonable options, but they all leave Spectral Wolves in the dust, and that's the level 25 version. The level 10 version from Rigwald's is... wait. As it turns out, the data mined information that both Path of Building and PoE DB rely on overrides the minion level to 65 for both levels of the skill. This causes them to have identical health and damage scaling in our tools, but their actual level seems to match the level requirement, like most other minion skills. Of course, I needed to verify this in-game, but doing so revealed a larger issue. To show you what I mean, let me introduce you to my good friend Reese, our test dummy at home, as it were. He shuffles around alone at the end of Act 6 Twilight Strand with consistent life and defenses, and loves to help me with mechanics testing. I've confirmed his life and resistances through a variety of skills with fixed damage, such as Righteous Fire and Arcane Cloak, which allows me to check the damage of other skills without the risk of PvP scaling. By recording his large boss life bar and counting pixels with image editing software, I can measure to an accuracy of plus or minus 62 damage at my screen resolution. Even the damage range on skills can be tested by scaling each hit to be large enough to measure and collecting a large enough dataset. After validating the method on a handful of spells, I tested the wolves and a few other minions for reference. Minion life can be tested with minion instability, ensuring immediate detonation with Mother's Embrace and a coruscating elixir. Damage can be checked by converting with Triad Grip to avoid armor variance, and any unwanted damage sources like Ignite, crits, and player hits can be eliminated with things like Elemental Focus, Brutality, Daedian Dawn, and so on. At the end of the day, my numbers confirmed that the difference in life and damage between the level 10 and 25 skill align exactly with the monster scaling differences at level 55 and 78, as expected. However, after fixing that, damage numbers in Path of Building were still off by a factor of 5, and even the attack speed was off by 50%. As far as I can tell, even with the appropriate actor level, the data mined life, damage, and attack time multipliers were all wrong. My empirical testing suggests a life multiplier of 1100%, damage of 770%, and an attack time of 1.5 seconds, which account for the overall 6.5 times difference in DPS that I measured. Of course, it could have been an anomaly in the Spectral Wolf data, so I tested other minions to confirm and found varying results. Minion spells appear to be accurate, but every minion attack was incorrect to different degrees. SRS dealt 20% less than expected, zombies dealt 22% less, and skeletons dealt an unfortunate 34% less, for instance. On the bright side, these inaccuracies only apply to the minion's base damage. Flat added damage appears to behave as expected, offering significant power to minions with high attack speed and minion counts, like SRS, which is honestly overtuned in that respect. With flat damage being more accessible than ever, having no effectiveness of added damage stat for minions really skews the meta. Up to this point, I've been unable to identify any pattern to the inaccuracies, so I can't submit any reliable changes to Path of Building, but something between the data mining, actor selection, and damage calculations is wrong for all attack minions. Consider yourself warned. With the damage numbers all sorted, damage scaling layers for the build will look similar to many other minion setups this league. There are a few directions we could take it, but I opted for a non-crit Guardian, dealing all 3 elements, but heavy on lightning. In order to take full advantage of elemental scaling, we can convert the wolves' physical attack to lightning with a 4 blue Triad Grip. With 6 supports available, we can use all the relevant high damage supports: minion damage, elemental damage with attacks, elemental focus, multi-strike, predator, and melee splash, which I swap for ruthless on endgame bosses. Naturally, the awakened versions of these supports would be better, but Spectre Wolves doesn't benefit from gem levels, so the difference is minor. In terms of buffs, the player runs Carrion Golem for a bit of added physical and to apply Feeding Frenzy. Elemental Weakness will reduce enemy resists, and Flesh Offering provides a nice boost to minion speed, which I found to be important to help the wolves keep up. We run Haste for the same reason, and Precision to cap out our accuracy and crit chance. Purity of Elements eases our resists with so many uniques and deals with ailments, and Tempest Shield brings us up to max attack and spell block in combination with Bastion of Hope and a block wheel. To finish off our auras, Aspect of the Spider can be beastcrafted on any rare to apply increased damage taken debuffs to nearby enemies, which will be most of them as we stick close for Static Strike. Our additional auras come from supporting minions, beginning with the Elemental Relics from Unwavering Crusade, which use Anger, Hatred, and Wrath auras with numbers comparable to gem level 27. The remaining minions are in our 6-link chest. Animate Guardian comes equipped with Legacy of Fury to apply a 14% Scorch and trigger AoE burns on kill thanks to Gravebind. Learcast offers a small damage aura as a budget alternative to Crown of the Tyrant, and Doppelganger's Guise keeps the Guardian nice and safe. Kingmaker is an option for Culling Strike and Fortification, but as a budget option I've gone for Singularity and Replica Victoria's Charity, slowing nearby enemies and granting frenzy charges on kill, again thanks to Gravebind. Raise Spectres is providing a ton of power this league, so we're running perfect versions of Spirit of Fortune, making lightning damage lucky, which is a big deal given lightning's wide damage range, Blasphemer for a huge smite buff granting even more flat lightning, Guardian Turtle for determination and physical damage reduction, and Warlord for vitality and endurance charges. That Vitality aura stacks with the regen from a Holy Relic, which triggers every time we hit with Static Strike, along with Time of Need to keep us topped off. By linking all of these minions with Meat Shield and Elemental Army, we can keep their auras close, grant them strong defenses, and have them apply exposure to further reduce enemy resistances. However, it's also very important that we raise their gem levels for a few reasons. Since Spectral Wolves has a fixed level and takes our weapon slots, we don't get added gem levels on wands or our amulet, but gem level increases our support minion's life exponentially, so it's important for their survivability. In addition, Raise Spectre gets 1 extra Spectre at gem level 25 for a total of 4 with Death Attunement, and the effect of their auras scale with level. For all these reasons, we're running Empower and placing the whole setup in a Corrupted +1 chest, which conveniently takes Elemental Army to level 21, bumping the maximum resistances up to 5. To cap things off, Charms from the Primalist Descendancy grant us Guardian's Old Onslaught aura, a bit of spell block, Fizz reduction for our minions, and Minimum Shock effect, which can stack and benefit from Ailment effect to make our Static Strike crits apply 20% shocks or higher. The gear here is not min-maxed, but still performs well on a budget. There's lots of room for improvement with things like a +1 Spectre chest, better rolled rares and Abyss Jewels, or a Defiance of Destiny, but this will do for now, so let's see how it plays. If you're looking for a build with minimal buttons to press, this is not it. Building around a unique weapon means we have no trigger wand, so any buffs we include need to be cast by hand. Each effect has a fair duration, so we can learn to rotate through them, but the playstyle could be too involved for some. To start, ambush an enemy and hit it with Static Strike, repeating whenever convenient while ambush is off cooldown. And try not to use Static Strike without ambushing first, as it will overwrite the high crit buff with a low crit one. Static Strike's range is fairly small, and we want to apply our aspect of the spider webs, so we try to stay close to enemies, wrapping around them to dodge attacks if the minions haven't already taunted them. Every so often, we'll want to refresh our Flesh Offering and the Sentinel of Radiance for their passive buffs. And when facing tankier single target, we can focus fire by ambushing like normal, applying our Curse and Predator mark, and recalling all the wolves with Convocation. Each wolf lasts 50 seconds and has its duration refreshed when at our minion limit, so map bosses and anything following an ad phase is no problem, but it takes an average of 8 seconds to spawn all 10 wolves on isolated bosses. This can be a minor inconvenience, but only really occurs for a few bosses in the endgame. While I was able to cruise through the main bosses of the endgame, the build probably won't be taking down Ubers or farming Valdos maps. It's a competent mapper with respectable mid-range bossing, far more than the numbers would have suggested. But, like most minion skills, it can't quite compete with the SRS meta. I'd happily recommend it to minion enthusiasts who are keen for something new, and point most others to SRS. Despite its overestimated damage, it's still head and shoulders above most other minions. But in the end, I think I learned 3 main things from this build, beginning with the obvious, which is to always test your mechanics. The tools we develop as a community are invaluable for helping direct our choices, but they aren't flawless, and they don't always tell the whole story. In such a complex game, curiosity and a critical eye can help you spot the diamonds in the rough. Second, socket pressure is real, and builds often benefit from cutting mechanics and refocusing. An earlier version of this build included a 6-link Holy Relic with Jeffrey's Crest in addition to the Spectral Wolves, synergizing with our close proximity to enemies, the consistent hits from Static Strike, and both scaling from pure physical hits. Both Wolves and Holy Relics are viable builds in their own right, but together there aren't enough sockets left for their buffs. With buffs and auras generally being multiplicative, every socket matters, so Wolves were better served as a soul damage source. And finally, quantity of minions is a defensive layer. The build is no pushover with a healthy life total, max block, and respectable armor, but it's tankier than it should be in practice. Even without the taunt provided by Meat Shield, enemies often sit and target the minions rather than you, making dodging much easier. I even considered dropping Holy Relic for Raise Zombie for the additional protection over regen, but it's nice to have the relic as a remnant of that previous iteration. And that's it for this one. Affliction has been great fun for build makers so far, with a big meta shakeup and accessible uniques across the board. If you thought this showcase was cool, share it with a friend who might like it too. I'll be back when I next have something fun to share, so until then, have a good one.